Would mathematics still be logical and consistent if the value of pi and the number of e were never discovered? This is a question from Quora.com. Pi, we use that for calculating circles, stuff like circumferences and areas and spheres. And E, the natural logarithm, Euler's number. Oh, it's a wonderful tool, especially for a person like me. I throw it in, I need it in so many places to explain so many things. But would mathematics still be logical and consistent without these constant numbers? For one, without these numbers, we wouldn't be having the internet. Probably wouldn't be having TVs, would not have reached space. Very, very important concepts in mathematics, very important ratios, But mathematics would still be logical because both pi and Euler's numbers were found using logical techniques. So there was a time when they didn't exist, but there was still logic. We would be behind. The intensity of the logic in the world or in societies would not be as great as it is because we'd be so far behind. Because that would be a proof that we were not as logical as what we could have been because we are here right now. This is the reality. Logic itself is a thinking process. It's a simple thinking process. If A, then B. If A, then B, then C. If P gets into a relationship with Q, you get R. Stuff, you understand? That's a logical thought, but I've added in relationships. Instead of saying if A, then B, it's a thought process. It's still the same logical concept. If P gets into a relationship with Q, we get R. Understand? It's all logic. It's a way of thinking. But if we didn't get to pi, there would still be logic and the natural logarithm. But the first premise can be wrong. The first premise of logic can be wrong. So that's why we haven't got here. But logic would still be there. Because you still build on that first premise. Or maybe there's no first premise. We haven't got to the step where there's a first premise for pi or the natural logarithm. Or the first premise is being missed. It's there in front of us, but we're missing it. We're looking for it. And to look for that first premise, we have to use logic. But you can miss the first premise even if it's in front of you. You understand? Things like that. Take, for example, magnetism. The first premise is, what is knowledge? Let's try and give it a unit so that we can look at it scientifically. Then we get to what is information. It has to have the same thing as knowledge for knowledge to be a part of information, to be the part of information we know. And from there, you logically said, let us test magnetism. It has to follow all these other things. But it wasn't there because for me to get to magnetism, the first premise was there lying in front of people, but they didn't look at it. It's been around for a long time. It's been around since we knew photons are both particles and light. Stuff like that, Oh, getting the first premise wrong. Take waves, take physics, People now start thinking if the mind can move a particle, if that's your first premise, then by logical extension you can move a universe with just your mind. You yourself understand. But the first premise is wrong. But it would be a consistent logical argument to end up with you can move a star with your mind if you can move a particle with your mind. It's a consistent argument. It's not false. But it's not logically wrong. But the first premise is completely faulty. So that's what, if we didn't get to pi, there would be still logic, but it could be faulty. Because the logic itself would be sound, but the first premise would be faulty. Take people saying they're superior to others. Well, logically, by extension, they can do this, 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 this. But the minute you have to steal somebody's mind to prove your superiorness, your logic is faulty. Understand? So but the logic is still there. The logical thing. Take demand. The demand curve is the same anywhere on this planet, just like an atom. But you'll still hear people denying this reality, and then they wonder what's going on. It's because their first premise is wrong. And until they accept that the demand curve goes like this, things cannot improve, because that is just the reality of human behavior. It's about the first promise. I mean, take religion. You read scriptures, be it, any scriptures. And if you don't follow this God, you'd be condemned to hell. You can build up a logical principle why you should murder other people on a faulty first premise. But the logic will be sound, you understand? So the logic is there. Whether pi was found or the natural log was found. Treat logic properly. That's why the scientific method is good. Use an experiment.